Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, the Red Raiders go shooters shoot mode in Wichita as a long ball barrage advances them to a second-round matchup with Drake.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from. Need one now? Grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. Stock up today. Stay energized. It is a 5 Hour Energy time of year, and possibly for the guy I'm saying good morning to, Chris Level, who is on the scene there in Wichita, Kansas, and just getting started, Chris. So thankfully we do have an opportunity to talk about a team surviving and advancing. So there's going to be a frenzy that continues into Saturday as the Red Raiders drop UNCW 82-72. Maybe came via some unconventional fashion or some contributors contributing in a way that you couldn't necessarily predict or project, but I don't care about any of that because the final score meant that Texas Tech gets to play another ball game. But what a game. There were moments, and credit to UNCW, Chris, for making it certainly interesting for maybe a longer period than I was wanting. But at the end of the day, Texas Tech was able to prevail. We'll obviously get into some big efforts from guys like Kerwin Walton and Elijah Hawkins. JT Toppin, again, with one of those, modest double-doubles. We've talked about that a couple of times this season, if there is such a thing. But, really, when you're talking about the Red Raider effort, Chris, I thought in light of Chance McMillian not being on the floor, it was a great effort by the Red Raiders, and they came together. And you did have some of those guys pick up the slack that was obviously there via his absence. And I think we saw a lot of what you have described as far as problems for the opponents, in that it's sort of a math problem. Is it an inside priority you're going to focus on? Is it an outside priority you're going to focus on? I think we saw some attention paid to JT Toppin and opened some things on the perimeter. And thankfully Tech, for the most part, took advantage of that.
Yeah, for the most part is the tricky way to word that.
Don't worry about that percentage. Let's not get bogged down in a number. Just call it for the most part.
Yeah, this was this kind of had a typical March Madness feel to it. You're up 35-19. Everything is right in the world. Shots are going in. No, I'm not worried about Chance. We're resting him. Everything's good. And then all of a sudden, it starts to feel a little tight, and it's like I need to loosen up the old collar, and you start sweating a little bit, and then they don't go in, and it was an 18-3 UNC Wilmington run that would end the first half, and then I think like stretch into the second half, and before you know it, they take a lead. And you're going, uh-oh, I've seen this movie before, for many years in this tournament. And it was like this slow train wreck thing that's just happening in slow motion. It's like you just want to run out there and try to stop it, and there's nothing you can do about it. But anyway, you avoided making news for the wrong reasons, and you were able to get out of there with a win. And you're right, man. I wasn't anticipating 46 3-point attempts by the Red Raiders. And I will say this: Takeo Siddle wasn't either. He said after the game he was very surprised that, because it's pretty clear that they almost dared you to shoot it, like go for it, like, but we're not letting this big fella down low. We're going to put our 7-foot, 260-pound center that they just let him foul and beat on JT and do all these things. He's the one bouncing around like he'd had 6 energy drinks before the game. All the officials were going up to him at different times going, dude, calm down. and he's bouncing around and he's like sweating and he's over in front of the band. It's like I couldn't keep track. It was exhausting me watching this kid, and he was the biggest guy in the building last night. But they let him beat on JT, and then Kamari McGriff, was got in some foul trouble, but just the combination because they did have some size, but they just doubled every time, and they just weren't going to let that was their game plan. But it opened up the 3-point looks, and at some point I thought, okay, because it's weird when somebody dares you to shoot it for whatever reason. It's like they don't go in sometimes when it's like, hey, I dare you, like a zone. But yeah, you made just enough of them. But yeah, to the tune of 13 of 46. Goodness
Yikes.
gracious.
I'm kind of curious, though. I mean, this is also something we talked about during the course of the regular season. And you would point out on some of these days where maybe it was a little heavier as far as the attempts. And we did see a huge day, at least one of those didn't we see 40 plus once this season, or was it 35 plus? I can't remember.
In
There was
Lawrence, Kansas.
yeah. But you were talking about, I think
Lawrence,
after that
Kansas.
game, you were kind of making the point that, hey, these are really mostly coming in the flow of the offense. I mean, these are some looks that you want, and your coach wants you pulling the trigger. When you have those looks, did you kind of feel that way again last night, and maybe they just weren't falling, or were there some shots taken that maybe you didn't like as much?
Yeah, there were too many times in this game versus Wilmington that I just felt like you can get the shot you're taking at any point. And like I feel it like Darion Williams was an example of this, like 3 times. I think he kind of early shot clock trying to get himself going, but just ill-advised. Like the shot he was taking, like we can wait 20 more seconds if that's what we're gonna have to settle for, and we can get that. Let's try to work for a better one. And so there was a few, but a lot of it's in the flow, and a lot of them you got good looks and just missed. I mean, that's just all there was to it. It's just this one felt a bit different because I think you could feel the pressure, and Wilmington was kind of just hanging around. It's just when you went in this because the game you're about to play, it's a limited possession game. You go on a stretch there and you miss you because like you ended the first half 1 of 9 from the field, and Wilmington was making most of theirs, and the next thing you know, it's like, okay, I just the Drake matchup that you're about to face is going to be interesting because it's going to be low scoring, lower. They're going to be really good on defense and all that. And I thought Wilmington deserves some credit, but bottom line is you just missed some open looks. And this is what I guess I don't want to be like the law of averages guy. However, I just don't foresee Elijah Hawkins going 3 of 14 in back-to-back games. I don't foresee Christian Anderson going 2 of 9 in back-to-back games. I don't foresee Darion Williams going 5 of 15 in back. They're too good. They've been too good. And yet here you are and you win by double digits, and so many guys on the same night had a very poor shooting night. Because so that I think gives you some serious hope.
Yeah, no doubt. I was really encouraged by the way that you were able to find a way to a win, given all you're describing there from a shooting perspective, being there without Chance McMillian, and then what you described earlier as far as that March kind of snowball. And we know how it goes, especially for an underdog. You get late into a game, they've got belief. Oh, they take a lead. Oh, they've got an arena on their side, and it gets fatal in those instances oftentimes for the favorite. And I think we were probably all thinking in that moment, oh, this is about to be us on this list. But you avoid it. And I do think that speaks kind of to the some intangibles, I guess, the intestinal fortitude of the team, that even when things were not coming easily or shots were not falling like you would expect them to or be accustomed to, you're able to find a way to be successful. And I would say, Chris, going back to what you mentioned pregame, first, today's episode brought to you by Nissan. And we're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can literally carry the whole team plus all the gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. So take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more today at nissanusa.com.
Today's episode brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Fixes tired fast. Whether you've got a long list of tasks at work or a bundle of DIY projects to tackle at home, take a 5 Hour Energy shot so you can cover everything with energy to spare. If you're like me, you've always got a lengthy list of things to get done around the house. So when you get your supplies for any project, don't forget the most essential one, a 5 Hour Energy shot. 5 Hour Energy shots give you the feeling of alertness and energy you need to get in the zone. And that's why 5 Hour Energy is the brand hardworking people like you have trusted for over 20 years to give them the alert, energized feeling they need to get through a busy and hectic day. And you always know where to find 5 Hour Energy shots, right at the cash register at nearly every convenience, drug, and grocery store nationwide. Even better, stock up on money-saving multi-packs to make sure you never run out of delicious, energizing 5 Hour Energy shots. And right now, if you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy today, you can use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB. That's LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions and does not apply to subscription orders. Boost your day, boost your life, and get in the get it done zone by going to 5hourenergy.com today.
From a rebounding standpoint, it did prove true. I think Tech maybe out-rebounded by one, but you kind of talked about if they're out-rebounding UNCW or if they're in the neighborhood of being 50-50, you don't really see a path for UNCW to pull off the win, and that's pretty much what we saw. But, man, it did take a heck of an effort from really everybody out there. Obviously, JT Toppin with the double-double was doing big work, and Darion Williams was as well. He was one rebound away from a double-double. But how about our guy Elijah Hawkins, who was one rebound away from a triple-double, had 14, 10, and 9 rebounds to go with it. Cleaning the glass proved key, like you predicted. Go ahead.
At the very end of the game, you're dribbling out the clock. Have you been made aware of this, or did you see this play out?
No.
So the clock is, you've got the ball with 10 seconds left, and they're not going to foul, and the game is over. Elijah Hawkins, I mean, it played out right in front of me, and I knew exactly what he was doing, and he was kind of doing it playfully. But he goes up because they're like, no shots, no shots. Well, Elijah Hawkins takes the ball underhanded, like granny shot, underneath the rim, kind of throws it up there, and he tried to catch it. The buzzer goes off. He was trying to get one more rebound.
Yeah.
Trying to get that. He's trying to get that triple double. He's trying to do what Ice Cube said many years ago. Messed around and got a triple double, right? But I think you and I nailed this earlier this week when we said he is the most important player for you going forward right now. I just think that the kid had nearly double-digit rebounds. He's the smallest guy on the floor. I just think what he Kerwin Walton has a monster night, and the first thing that Kerwin Walton said, based on his 27 points and 8 made threes, was it's credit to Elijah Hawkins. I mean, JT Toppin, Big 12 Player of the Year, and one of the first things he says is like, well, a lot of that has to do with Elijah Hawkins getting me the ball and where I need it, all that kind of stuff. So I just think I think Elijah had a monster night, and again, a poor shooting night. But it just shows you that how many different ways can you affect a game, and I think he affected it like crazy, being able to assist and then rebound and then he played great defense. I mean, what he did on Donovan Newby, because Donovan Newby 2 of 10, 2 of 8 from behind the arc. He had 8 points, and this was one of the scarier matchups for you. And Elijah Hawkins said, "No, sir, not tonight." He went kind of Dikembe Mutombo on that whole deal.
I didn't think I would have a Dikembe Mutombo reference when discussing Elijah Hawkins, but it does make sense. I was wanting to ask about what you thought and what you saw as far as the team defense overall in round one. We talked about Chance McMillian's absence and how much obviously the defensive end of the floor is going to be impacted by that. So what did you think about their effort first time out?
I thought you had good energy. I thought you kind of knew what you were in for. I thought they let and boy, I hate it's so much easier to talk about officiating after a win, but I thought they let you play very physical in the first half, and I thought I had no issue with. I was like, okay, this is an NCAA tournament, and they get a bit ticky tack in the second half, and it just bothers me a great deal. It's like, okay, pick which one.
Right.
But like and so that part was interesting because you're trying to be as physical as you were allowed to be, and then it's like, okay, never mind, we're gonna rein this in. Well, I mean, again, choose. I mean, Federico got just spiked on the ground. He's like picked up, spiked down. It's like, oh, foul on you, tall guy laying on the floor. I'm like, excuse me. But I thought you were ready for the physicality, I guess is my point. And you were ready for it. You weren't going to be pushed around, and you weren't going to be, the lack of juice and all those things. I just thought, yeah, I liked what I saw there, and it wasn't perfect, but you may and like there's the kid Nolan Hodge that plays for Wilmington. There was he just was rolling at some point. He was keeping him in it. He had
Yeah.
18 points. He missed some down the stretch, but there was a time where I think he was like 9 of 12, and he was just hot. And that's what's scary about this time of year. You just go up against one dude, but you had a hand in his face, and he's just dropping them in there. But you were able to survive it. But I thought defensively pretty good, and they did win the rebounding battle by one.
Yeah.
Wilmington did, so they
But
can.
you said it's not that Tech has to win it, but if you're just competitive there, then
Yep.
you feel like you're going to be in good shape, and you wound up being in good shape.
Being in good shape. That's right.
Speaking of what's scary this time of year, it's what's coming up on Saturday next for Texas Tech. I've got to admit, this is the matchup I wanted, and it's not because of the seeding or anything like that. It's all about the Ben McCollum factor. I didn't even know if this guy was actually a real person, but we talked about him so much for a period of time, Chris. He may still actually be a candidate to join the staff of Grant McCasland. I don't know. Is he a candidate until he's not? Is he actually not now? It never ends. But I was intrigued by this matchup when I saw the bracket come out. We talked about it a couple of days ago as far as it being a possibility. I do think, and clearly it was proven, seems like in round one in that matchup, and you got to see them up close and personal, but it kind of seems like the better team advanced here. I don't know if out of 10 matchups, Missouri is winning the majority of those. I think Drake might be pulling that kind of thing off fairly often. So not doubting in any way what they're capable of as a team. And I really don't feel like, Chris, that they're just on some heater or whatever, or hot at the right time. I don't even know if you call them Cinderella when you're 30-3 coming into the tournament. I know as a smaller program or a mid-major that they're going to kind of be in that category, but it's going to be a tough matchup. But it's one I was intrigued by, and it is the one I kind of wanted because of the coaching angle of this.
Yeah, so you were looking at last week, and I'm looking at, okay, yeah, I don't know if I want to put Grant through the whole second round game versus Ole Miss. That just would have been a bunch of unneeded drama. Fans would have eaten it up and all that, but I just didn't want Grant and the team to have to go through all that. Then I even told you about the BYU scenario. I'm
Yeah.
like, we've done that. Let somebody else worry about that team. That team's playing really good lately. I don't want to see all that length and talent and all that. Well, then you get Drake dropped in your lap, and this is a team that spent, I guess, a day or two in Lubbock, Texas, back in October. Over one weekend, we've documented this. There was a scrimmage. It was at the United Supermarkets Arena. And I think Coach McCollum and his staff actually were over at Coach McCasland's house that night with a bunch of fantasy campers, and it was just kind of a basketball. Everybody's enjoying each other's company, and got a little work in and whatnot. A lot of people watched said scrimmage, actually, from a fantasy camp standpoint, and now we fast forward to a little more meaning on this one. This one has some some mustard on it for sure. So
Do you remember
I
hearing
watched.
anything about that scrimmage, Chris, or did you get to see it?
I did not get to see it.
Anything you heard about the way they matched up at that time? I just think
Yeah,
it'd be kind of interesting.
and keep in mind, I think what you're gonna, if you go like look it up, you're gonna see that Texas Tech won said scrimmage by 7-ish points, may have been 6, may have been 8, somewhere around there. So don't quote me on the score. What you have to understand about scrimmages is, hey, let's play our backups. Let's play. You can kind of trick it up. It's not an official game. Sometimes you try to make it like that. Who's refereeing it? Are you going to play, some 10-minute segments? Are you going to play 2 20-minute, whatever. Anyway, it could be all tricked up. So it's tricky when you see scores of these things and all that. I just knew coming away from it, that it's like Tech didn't hammer these guys at all. And I'm thinking Drake, huh? And you'd won, but it's like it's a starting point. But I knew that people had thought fairly highly of Drake at the time. And so as you watch this play out, it's just because they've won 30 plus, and they clearly, this isn't any fluke. Like, I watched that thing, I watched every second of that game right in front of me last night, and they were the better team. They hustled better. They were better coached. Missouri had more athletes and the depth and all this talent and the fans and all that. And Drake didn't care. Drake did not give a damn. They were tougher. They were executed. They turned it over. Like, because here's the crazy thing. Drake wins that game. Let's see here. Yeah, by 10. They missed 12 free throws. 12. And I thought, if Drake doesn't advance, as it kind of started to get tight, I was like, they've got themselves to blame because they missed so many free throws. But Jimmy Chitwood is playing for Drake, the Drake Bulldogs.
Yes, he is.
I mean, Bennett Sturts is somebody that he is somebody that is just so impressive. And he doesn't make the wrong play almost ever. And it's like he's got all the tools in the bag. I don't know if he's quite 6'4", that what he's listed at, but he's going to make the right play. And this is what wins at this time of year, is guard play. So that's why, guess what? Elijah Hawkins is going to be your most important player again Saturday afternoon. And Bennett Sturts is going to be the most important player for Drake. But, I mean, this cat, he averages 19 a game. But I mean, it's straight up Jimmy Chitwood, man. I mean, he's
Yeah.
shooting 3-pointers, one-legged off the deal, getting into the lane. It's like throwing alley oops, and it's just like, I mean, it was uncanny.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
So anyway,
instinct it seems like he has is just
oh,
wild. Like, I don't know if you call it vision or just a feel or what, but
IQ. Yeah. I mean,
yeah. And if anybody's bringing to mind, like, Steph Curry-esque type of shots and what, that's another thing that's scary this time of year. He was scary this time of year in a Davidson jersey once upon a time. So we'll see, man. Big challenge for the Red Raiders coming up on Saturday, and we all know, what the rooting interest will be. I suppose I don't know if it matters at this point, Chris, as you get teams eliminated. I guess it would have been a road game for Tech if Missouri was advancing, as you were describing all the Missouri fans that were in the building. Maybe we get a few more Red Raiders trickling up now that we hit the weekend. I don't know what the Drake showing will be like, but I did see they've got like several members of their 1969 Final Four team all dressed up like Ben McCollum in the front row in the white dress shirt and the blue tie. So there's some good juju there. But what do you expect as far as the environment on Saturday? I guess there's still some neutral fans that are just showing up for the game, but what's it going to be like, you think?
well, and keep in mind, yeah, that there'll be a lot of Tech folks here. It's the first game and everything, but keep in mind, you've got Houston and Gonzaga fans in the house
Yeah.
too. So for people that have never been to an NCAA tournament game, it's one of the most interesting, fascinating environments you will ever be in. You just got the neutral observer that starts rooting for an underdog, but then you've got these fans of another game that's coming up and all that. But I expect it to be juiced. Drake had some people there for sure. They were loud, trying to compete with the Missouri fans. But you're just going to deal with a really well coached team, man, and this is going to be a close game. So just prepare for it. Take the Pepto preemptively because it's Drake's style is going to lead to a keeping them in the game. This will be a slower game for sure. This will be a limited possession game. This will be. I don't envision you being able to get up 46 3-point shot attempts in this game. I do think though that they may have a harder time guarding JT than Wilmington did because they don't have that size. But defensively, team wise, they are exceptional. I mean, they've held several opponents this year below 50%, 50 points in the game, and they're just extremely well coached. And then offensively, I love their spacing. They'll purposely let the shot clock drip down, and then Bennett Sturts, aka Jimmy Chitwood, he gets in the lane and he's either throwing up a floater or there's somebody cutting down the baseline and it's like a no look and then a dunk along the baseline and you're like, what just happened? And they got to drip 30 seconds off the clock and then you just start to feel it as there's not enough time left and we don't get the ball that I mean, you see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
this will be a fascinating game and a very difficult game to win. You are surprisingly, and I guess unsurprisingly, but you're an 8-point favorite here. And I don't envision Chance McMillian playing in this game either. I just don't. I don't think much will have changed between a Thursday night and a Saturday afternoon to allow him to play. And boy, did you miss him. He's a
Yeah.
connector. You asked that question. You miss him offense or defense most? Well, the answer is yes. I mean, we saw it play out. So
Well, before we get out of here, shout out to our guy Kerwin Walton for picking up some of that slack, like we talked about
yes,
earlier in the program. Just an unbelievable effort from him, and we'll need it again in round 2. But always admire a guy who is always ready for the next opportunity, which it seems like he is, because it's been a fairly quiet season for him, to say the least, I would think. I mean, a starter that sometimes we're seeing top out at, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes in a ball game previously, but ready for the next opportunity. And that opportunity comes in round 1 of the NCAA tournament. And he goes for 27, just unbelievable. I think there's a lot of probably mental toughness to credit for that type of thing, because a guy that has had kind of a frustrating season, Chris, could not be ready to go or not still be locked in, but clearly that was not the case.
yes. So let's go with the history books here. Elijah Hawkins almost had a triple double, but he didn't. He was 1 rebound shy. The only other program triple doubles in program history, Kasib Powell in the Bob Knight era, and then Mark Davis, who I actually played against in junior college way back in the day, back in the James Dickey era. So how about that? And Elijah Hawkins, the smallest guy on the floor, was close. Kerwin Walton, as far as 3-point attempts and makes, was in the Corey Carr, Alan Voskuhl territory as far as makes and then overall attempts in a game. But he does set the record for most makes in a NCAA tournament game for Texas Tech, and it was his career high. And anyway, he just 8 of 19 is not exactly the best night. They weren't forced, and I think that this is. I mean, like there were times when he passed one up and Grant McCasland would get irritated, he called timeout or whatever. Shoot the ball. Like this, he
Yeah.
wanted, I mean, because this kid, the more he gets up when he gets clean looks, because I've seen Kerwin Walton in a gym before on a machine where it's rebounding for him or somebody rebounding for him make close to 50, 60 in a row. I mean, it's robotic. Like he just it's one of the most impressive things you will ever see. Like he's shooting 3-pointers like it's free throws and like these are just shoot arounds where he's just kind of, but it's very robotic. This is why I say that. And so the more he gets, the more they're going to go in. And so I think that was all by design. But yeah, 27 points on the large in part 3-pointers and some free throws to go with it. But well, he bailed you out a little bit, didn't he? I mean, it
Yeah, he
is
did.
is fun to watch.
On
Yeah.
the biggest stage of the year. Crazy. And now the stage gets even bigger as we get there on Saturday for a 5-10er. So gonna miss that 10 o'clock tip off. I know we're all regretting it's got to come so early in the day. Certainly Chris is, I'm
Jeez.
sure. But we survived it and we're back to it on Saturday, hoping to survive that one. Chris, appreciate your time as always, man. Enjoyed it. Enjoyed the next ball game, and we will chop it up on the other side. Hopefully, talking about an extended stay for you on the road. Love it when you're in God's country, but I love it whenever you're following a winning basketball team in the NCAA tournament as well. So I'm a little conflicted, man. I miss you, but I want to keep you there a little longer.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. I love you all. If you show up in Wichita, go eat at the Doodah Diner. Okay. You can't, it's phenomenal.
All right.
Yeah, Tell them that Casey Cowan sent you. They'll hook you up, man. Yeah, they will hook you up. Yeah, so we'll see what we get, man. Gonna be a tight one against Drake. I think. I love the matchup though. I think you match up well against them. As weird as that may sound, not gonna be easy. But a better shooting night could send you to the Sweet 16 and going to see that Golden Gate Bridge once again. I guess the
Yep.
second time in the last 5 or 6 years it would be. So
Yeah.
we shall see.
Yeah, and I'm hoping there's maybe a little bit more meat on the bone for guys like Toppin and D5 closer to the basket, possibly in this matchup. I don't know, if there'll be such an emphasis on the perimeter or the way you're shooting it from long range, but that's always been a part of what Texas Tech has done this year. So obviously going to be a part of what we see coming up on Saturday. All right, Chris, enjoy the ball game, man, and we'll see you for the next one in, well, not too long on the other side of Texas Tech and Drake. Appreciate everybody for being out there. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Shout out to the everydayers. Thanks for being out there every day. It's in the title. And shout out to the Matador Mob. Hit the show notes, find a link to a free 14-day trial. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. Thanks as always for the time. For Chris, I'm Casey, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.